Thank you for subscribing to the Extra Mile Podcast. Help us out by leaving a review and a 5-star rating wherever you download the show. After leaving a review, slide on into our DMs over on social media at Mississippi DOT and let us know. As a thank you, we have compiled a Google Map list of all of our guests' favorite spots to eat on Mississippi highways. It is our gift to you. Seriously, you guys are the best. We could not do the show without you, and we greatly appreciate the support. Remember, drive smart out there on Mississippi highways.
Hey everyone, I'm Marshall Ramsey. I spent a lot of time driving along Mississippi's highways, and I know firsthand the importance of safe driving. So put down your phone, ditch the distractions, and pay attention to the roads. It's that simple. Drive smart for roadside workers, for your family, and for yourself.
That's nearly $2 billion, and that's money that's going to be spent on improving safety, enhancing mobility, and improving economic growth and development in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah, and with this historic funding from the legislature, new construction will be popping up all over Mississippi.
MDOT presents the Extra Mile Podcast.
Men and women of the Department of Transportation are up to the task and up to make sure that we deliver a product that the taxpayers can be proud of. So I'm ready for us to go to work.
Welcome into another edition of the Extra Mile Podcast legislative session presented by the Mississippi Department of Transportation. I'm MDOT Deputy Director of Public Affairs, Paul Catul, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Will Kraft, the Director of Public Affairs here at the agency. In the midst of the third week of the legislative session, we've got a fantastic guest for you today. We have Mississippi's brand new Speaker of the House of Representatives, Jason White. He was first elected to the House in 2011 and represents District 48, which is Attala, Carroll, Holmes, and Leake counties. I had to get a pronunciation on Attala before the show.
Nailed it.
There we go. Speaker White, first of all, thank you so much for coming in and joining us today. We know you are a very busy man these days. First-time guest, so kind of give us a little bit of background information on yourself, particularly why did you decide to get into politics and become a public servant?
Very good. I'll answer that. But first, I want to thank you and Will for having me over. You know, y'all kind of got the reputation around the campus. This is the coolest podcast around that's going on.
Awesome.
So
right on.
Y'all may need to take the show on the road.
That's right.
No pun intended with MDOT.
Hey.
No, thanks for the opportunity to be here. It's good. We have gotten a session kicked off and going, and right now everybody's still in a good mood, and we hadn't debated any hotly contested bills or policy yet. So everybody's still speaking to each other and going to lunch, and it's all good. So
Love it.
This is my beginning of my fourth session. I've been in the legislature 12 years, as you said, from 2012, representing parts of those counties, Attala, Carroll, Holmes, and Leake counties. I live in the little town of West. It's about 250 folks there. It's my wife's hometown, and I practice law in Kosciusko, which is kind of the center of my legislative district, with Carthage and Kosciusko being the two big towns in my district, if you will.
The metropolitan areas.
Metropolitan areas, that's right, the trade centers. But, I have clients and constituents that remind me often to some folks it's the capital of the world. So,
That's right.
We love the hometown feel of that you get from our district, and so we're working hard to preserve and improve that. Background for me, like I said, I grew up in Kosciusko. I went to school at Mississippi College, and then I went to law school here at Mississippi College, just right across the street. And I kid some folks. During my 3 years in law school here at Mississippi College downtown, I drove by the Capitol every day. I don't even remember looking out my window at the Capitol and thinking, boy, I'd like to go in there and be a part of that one. I mean, I knew what went on there. I wasn't from a political family, and politics really wasn't part of our, history, so to speak. And had certainly, nobody in my family run for public office. So anyway, it's fast forward all these years, 25 years later, and I'm there every day now, so it's pretty neat for me. And, what's the saying, man plans and God laughs. And so I never planned to be at the Capitol, much less, being this involved. So that part's been a cool ride. But when I graduated law school in '98, I moved back home. We live in West, and I practiced law there in Kosciuszko and been there the entire time. I've served as a city judge. I've also served as what we call a youth court referee, which is where you hear cases involving youth that have had run-ins with the law. So I also served the city of Kosciuszko as their city attorney. So I've been involved in different aspects of local government, if you will, that kind of exposed me to this side of to the government side of it. And in addition, a board of alderman spot came open in the town of West. And some of my neighbors, one of which is a long-time 35-year employee of MDOT, Ricky Farmer, who runs y'all's maintenance barn there in Holmes County and Durant. He's the head guy there. Great guy, great ambassador for y'all, and a great neighbor to our community. But Ricky encouraged me, he said, you should run for this Board of Alderman spot. Well, I did, and I think I got 40 votes, and I won of the 50 that were cast. But here's the tricky part of the politics I didn't really consider. My mother-in-law is the mayor. So fast forward, all these years later, when I got to the legislature, somebody said, Jason, you're a nice guy. You'll never last around this place. It's rough and tumble, and it's tricky politics, dude. And I'm like, let me tell you something. I was able to negotiate a deal where my mother-in-law was the mayor, and I sat on the board of aldermen, and I still get invited to holiday dinner.
That's
so
right.
I think I can handle what's going on here at the legislature. So anyway, when we're not working at home or in politics, we enjoy, a lot of hunting, a little bit of fishing, but a lot of hunting. My son and I do a lot of duck hunting and deer hunting. And so that's, if I have a hobby, that would be it outside of politics and work. So my law practice is a typical small town law practice. We do a little bit of all of it, including, as I said, representing the city of Kosciuszko, as well as several like utility boards, water boards, Kosciuszko Water and Light, things like that. So it gives you an opportunity to plug in and out of the community, in things that touch everybody. And you get a real sense of what's going on, in your community.
That's right. And not to say not the least of these at all, but a big hobby, I know, football family. We got QB1 coming down to Southern Miss. We don't have to get too far off into that, but very much looking forward to that.
We're excited about that. John actually graduated early in December. This is his senior year of high school, and he's actually moving into the dorm this weekend at Southern Miss. So
I got my gear on today, so
all right.
make sure we get
Southern
that
Miss
to the top, baby.
What do they say? Southern Miss to the top.
That's
right?
it. That's
we're
right.
excited about that for him. He's worked hard, and so it's been cool to see that. Dream be realized
That's
for him
right.
to get to play, and so we're looking forward to hanging out in Hattiesburg a lot more in the hub city. My good friend Toby Barker's the mayor, and y'all know he was a member in the legislature with us before he became mayor of Hattiesburg. So we're excited about getting to be down there more and spend time there.
The good mayor is a fine fraternity brother of mine, so
okay.
the roots run deep. Love me some Hattiesburg down there.
Maybe
man.
we can talk off the podcast.
That's right. I have to give you all the stories. That's right. There we go. Well, and you just mentioned a lot of this. You weren't thrust necessarily into politics, but found your way into public service. How about becoming the speaker? I know this has kind of been a new thing, getting kicked off right now. Talk a little about that experience.
Well, that's kind of I've been in the legislature 12 years, and it's something, some of the local press were interviewing, and I was digging them a little bit because they said, well, when is the coronation taking place? Or you were just handed the speakership. And I'm like, man, we've been working hard for 12 years helping people, accomplish their goals. We didn't just wake up, and then they were kidding me. They said, oh, well, Speaker Gunn anointed you, the next speaker and that sort of thing. We're like, look, we worked hard. But he did place me in roles. First, I was in my second term, he made me chairman of rules, which is lots of legislation goes through that committee, but it's strictly commending resolutions where you're doing a resolution congratulating somebody on retirement or somebody's 100th birthday or 25 years in business or whatever it is. So most of that stuff is commending resolutions, which sound, pretty lighthearted and not heavy legislation. But every member in the chamber, all 122, they want to recognize their local folks. So they come to see the rules chairman, and I was able to help those people get their stuff through, get their people there to recognize them on the floor. And so I got to know every member of the legislature, Republican, Democrat, black, white, from Tishomingo County all the way to the Gulf Coast. And you got to learn about kind of what's important to those members, And as small as our state is and as few people as we have, it's still very diverse. What's important in DeSoto County is totally different what's important in Leake County and Carthage in the middle of my district or what's important in the Pine Belt. And so you got to learn the different areas of the state and the specific members and the things that kind of make them tick. And so that was great exposure for me to the body as a whole. And then the last 4 years, the speaker nominated me, if you will, to be his speaker pro tem, which is kind of the number two guy. And in that role, you're kind of just more of, you don't really have a real policy committee, but you plug in on major issues wherever. So, I was able to plug in on the Modernization Infrastructure Act. Y'all remember when we did that and finally started doing some real diversions on the use tax that went to infrastructure, specifically things that are near and dear to y'all's heart for sure, but also are to all Mississippians. So it was fun to be involved in that and help craft that. And then fast forward, whether you're talking about, our major initiatives to cut taxes and some other things, I got to play roles in that. Count votes. That's a bunch of the pro tem's time as you're meeting with members to find out where they are on an issue, especially major initiatives that the speaker wants to push. So that allowed me to really, get to hang out and know each member as you're working through with them their issues or what their problem is with MDOT's legislation. What can we do to make it palatable to you or for your district to get it to where, you want to support it. So that's kind of a little bit of my legislative career history. And while none of those roles, other than the pro tem role, maybe would have been considered high profile, they did allow me to be in lots of different circles that maybe I wouldn't normally have been in within the membership. And so that was neat to develop those relationships that I think have kind of served us well as we've been trying to figure this out and gain the support for speaker, which we were able to do. But folks have trusted us with this, and we're going to work hard to prove their trust right. And
it seems like we've had an unprecedented issue come up every year for the last decade. Seems like but all those things handled behind the scenes, been plugged in with every member who's also dealing with those. I mean, no easy burden to lift there. I can only imagine.
I tell people we have at least one of everything in the House of Representatives. I mean, whether you want a banker, a realtor, a lawyer, a doctor, there's somebody in there that knows more than you about whatever this specific issue is. Go find them and let's figure out before we go too far with this issue or before we mess it up. We want to get it right.
And I can only imagine, 170 plus opinions trying to navigate those, come up with a decision. No easy task.
Right. Yeah. And I've just been talking about our 122. When you throw the 52 senators on the other end of the building into it, it makes for fun times and interesting conversations for sure.
No doubt about that. So let's drill into the 2024 legislative session a little bit. We'll kind of get into some stuff outside of transportation, but this is a transportation podcast. So what is kind of on the agenda, on tap for transportation during this session?
Well, there's lots of talk about dedicated streams of revenue to fund whether it's capacity projects or maintenance projects. We typically debate the budget that MDOT's going to have for those things. We have a brand new chairman of the House Transportation Committee. Representative Steve Massengill was named just this morning. We named him as chairman from Hickory Flat. And he's in the trucking business and they run about 400 or 500 trucks up and down our highways, throughout the state. So he's got a good feel for what's going on, out on the roads from that standpoint. And Joseph Tubb from down in the Pine Belt will be his vice chairman. Okay. I will tell y'all, transportation, we just finished putting the committees as a whole together. Transportation committee is probably the second or third most requested
really?
committee in the legislature. Everybody, but if you think about it, everybody has roads in their district, and folks care about good roads and bridges and being able to get to school, work, and the grocery store. And so it touches everybody. And I'm preaching to the choir about that, talking to y'all about it and to your people. But it's important. And so we think that we've made great strides in the way that we're funding it and trying to stay out of MDOT's way so that Brad White and y'all's team here, y'all are able better to figure out the best way to spend that money and stretch that dollar as far as it'll go. And so sometimes in the past, I think the legislature, we hadn't done a good job. We've done a poor job by getting in the way and complicating y'all's mission by saying, okay, well, we know you've got your plan, but we want these three things too. And so sometimes that complicates the planning that y'all need to be able to do from a design and build standpoint and just from a budgeting standpoint. So I want us to be less about getting in the way with the long-term plans as y'all lay it out. Y'all know more about roads, building roads and the maintenance and what it takes. I want us to figure out the money piece of it, get y'all where you need to be, and then we need to, I hope we can do a better job of staying out of MDOT's way, because people are liking the maintenance projects that they see going on, and the paving and the bridges. Finally, we're getting back. We were at a critical point. We're getting back. And so the one thing taxpayers don't fuss about is their tax money going to roads and bridges. Now they argue and debate every other form that we spend tax dollars on. I mean, you name it, whatever the issue or agency is, they've got opinions on it. Most folks all agree from both sides of the aisle they want to support infrastructure and roads and bridges and the things that y'all do. So you got that going for you in a big way. Everybody's for your budget. You know what I'm saying?
We're for it too.
But I want us as much as we can to not mire your agency in red tape and directives, and stay out of it with pet projects, and let y'all make those decisions. Y'all know where it's needed more than we do, and hopefully the politicians can let y'all do what y'all do best.
Well, and that's something Brad, Director White, he says often, that having that earmark-free appropriation bill allow that full flexibility. One of the things that we're most grateful for in that appropriation process, it's gone a long way. From getting staff numbers back up to pay scales, even corrected. Lots of appreciation to be said about the way y'all have helped us out with that.
Well, you hear people all the time say, you should run government like a business, and there's a lot of truth to that. There's some things you can't, because government is expected to fund some services and provide some services that taxpayers and voters expect. But as much as we can, that's the way we would like MDOT to run. That's why we tried to get out of just ironclad pay scales and let y'all, you knew best how to budget your money for your people and for your maintenance projects and capacity projects. And so we want to take the cuffs off and let y'all do that and make the dollars go as far as they can go. And then if something is not good, your first answer isn't, well, y'all made us do it this crazy way. Brad has agreed that this agency will be accountable if we will allow y'all the freedom to work it. And so that's going to be our main goal. In addition to that, we want to look at showing up and being sure that long-term, the diversions that we do have coming to different, I would call them pots of money over here, the different things that y'all do, we want to ensure that those things are kind of set where y'all can predict and budget, in a reasonable and long-term way.
And I know we talked about, that long-term revenue source there, stream. Don't know what that answer is going to look like. I'm sure it'll be, talked about to great lengths, but still looking like we'll do another round, emergency road bridge fund, some of those things. Keep them going. Awesome. I know the folks out there love that.
Well, there's no denying that the state's bank accounts are full right now. And so, as I was saying, one of the things folks like seeing their money spent on are road and bridge projects. And so, we're glad to do that. And right now, these are good budgetary times for the state, and so we want to do as much of this as we can while we've got it. It was not like when I got elected 12 years ago. We were depleting the rainy day fund just to make bare bones budgets for all agencies and all areas of government. We're in a different world now. We've got to whom much is given, much is expected,
right.
And so we've got to be good stewards of these surpluses that the taxpayers have sent us.
That's a lot of good news right there.
Yeah.
This is all positives.
Love to hear it. That's right.
Absolutely.
What about as far as, we talked about some MDOT specific stuff, and we love to hear it. That's what we're obviously focused on a lot. But much like any other taxpayer in the state, everything that goes on over there impacts us. What about some other things you guys have on the forefront? Any priorities that maybe coming up?
Well, something that would be near and dear to your listeners, you've got lots of listeners, but specifically your employees and the folks in your agency, is a lot of conversations centered around the public employees retirement system.
Oh, yeah.
Something that either your former MDOT, your retirees are enjoying today, or that the ones that are here now are planning on enjoying in the future. And you're looking at one here. Yeah. My wife is a PERS retiree. My mother and dad they're both educators. They're retired state employees who receive PERS. lots of conversations started last year when the PERS board voted to raise the employer contribution 5% from 17.4 to 22.4. And that caused great concern among local governments, both city and county, as well as state agencies. Were like, this is a real number in the budget. Like a 5% bump is huge, considering, the razor thin margins that so many of our agencies run on. So everybody agreed at that point, we need to pump the brakes and look at this system as a whole. What can we do different? What can we do better? Nobody's looking to change benefits for retirees. That's not the thrust of this. The thrust of this is, let's identify the problem and be sure that long-term PERS is sustainable and viable and a vibrant retirement system. But the first step is acknowledging that there is a problem, because for a long time when maybe an actuary or somebody that was really looking at the numbers would say, this thing it may not be funded at the level it should be funded for the benefits we're paying. The response from PERS was, time's going to work it out. This is a long-term deal, and investments will get it, and that sort of thing. But we actually paid out more benefits last year than we took in.
Oh, wow.
And so, my high schoolers, my kids at home can do the math real quick and figure out, if you don't change something about the way you're doing business, it's a long-term problem. Now, it's not going to run out of money tomorrow or next year. I'm not here to say the sky's falling. I'm saying it's time for an adult conversation about the future of PERS and being responsible stewards of taxpayer money and figuring out what's best long-term for our PERS retirement system. And so I want to be a partner in that. I want the PERS board. And we've had good conversations. Their executive director has been very open, and we've enjoyed good dialogue. And so we're going to get smart people around a table like this, and we're going to figure it out and do what's best.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's 22-ish years away from me, but like you said, it is taking a lot of real forethought to handle that.
Well, and when you figure the politics of it, there are about 140,000 state employees. There are about 120,000 state retirees. That's 250,000 people who are not only voters, they're engaged voters.
Very much.
And so, the legislature is very, attentive to what, those folks have to say on the issue. So we want to be responsive in that way. We just want everybody to understand, both retirees, both employees of the state, and taxpayers around the state to understand this is a real issue, and we need to get a handle on it.
Love it.
Absolutely.
Another one I would ask about, I think I mentioned this to Brad the other day. Daycare is expensive. Everything hits the pocketbooks these days. Anything more coming as far as income tax or tax reform in any way?
Yes, conversations continue to go on around that issue, and here's why: we continue to take in almost $1 billion more dollars than we spend.
Oh, wow.
Like, we're running the surplus again this year. We'll be up several $100 million. Our budget, will be between around $6.5 billion, but we're going to take in close to $7.5. So as long as we're running these large surpluses, you're going to hear my Republican colleagues in the House continue to harp on this idea of it's time to give the people back more of their money. And 2 years ago, we did pass, as I mentioned earlier, the largest income tax cut in state history. We're at full phase-in 2 more years. We will be a 4% flat tax state. And among states that pay income tax, that's the 6th best in the country. Now, there are a few states that have no income tax. Unfortunately for us, our sister state in Tennessee doesn't have one. And then, of course, you got Texas and Florida close, so that don't have one as well. So we're striving to get there. And as long as revenues continue to hold like they are and we enjoy these surpluses, I think you're going to see a continued methodical approach to whittle on that, so that you keep more of those hard-earned dollars. You know better what to do with that money than we do in state government. So we just want to be mindful of the core functions of government that we do have to provide, such as good roads and bridges. So so there's somewhere in the middle there is the answer, and so we're going to keep working hard on that.
Love it.
That's excellent. That's all. More good news for sure. So we've got some fun questions coming up for you. Did want to give you an opportunity. Any other legislative priorities on the House side you want to quickly mention?
Well, I won't get off in the weeds on them, but we're gonna take a long, hard look at both our and these are things that you hear every politician that comes in here could probably say, we're going to work on education and healthcare. But again, it's like roads and bridges. Those things touch every Mississippian's. Like you were just talking about child care, or how we folks, for the first time in this last election cycle, instead of it being about maybe some red meat Republican issues that are near and dear, to me as a conservative and to my main supporters, for the first time they were asking questions like, Jason, what are y'all doing to make sure that our hospital stays, viable here in this community, and I still have health care options as far as is somebody going to be at the emergency room when I show up, or am I going to show up one day and that thing's going to be locked up? Are my doctors still going to be here? Is the clinic going to be here? Those kind of things. And so we want to be sure. Now, again, things change. There's a reason we still don't have a movie theater in the little town of West where I live. Folks move and are very mobile these days and move around. And so it doesn't look like it did 50 and 60 years ago when we were building so many community hospitals. Those hospitals may have to adapt and look different than they did. Our hospital in Kosciuszko did a major renovation. Now we have a brand new state-of-the-art emergency room. Now we're not running 60 or 70 people in the hospital every day like that. I was born at that hospital. They don't deliver babies there anymore. That was only 50 years ago. But my point is that it's a changing landscape of healthcare, not just in Mississippi but nationwide. And so it's tricky for us being a very rural state and folks being accustomed to that hospital being right down the street. I want it to be there. I'm just saying it may look different and deliver service. I want them to have a place to be stabilized in an emergency situation, and then let's get them somewhere else if we have to. And so folks are going to be willing to there's going to be some give and take there with communities. But taxpayers and voters for the first time were asking like real pointed healthcare questions about access and quality of care that I really hadn't seen in my prior main two election cycles like we saw this time. And so for especially for my Republican colleagues, for the first time, we're going to try to really dig in on that issue and look at it from all aspects.
I'm here for
Excellent.
it. Yeah, especially those like you just mentioned out in the rural, more rural parts of Mississippi. A huge issue. My grandmother down in Jupiter, she's got to come to Jackson every time.
Right.
When she needs health care. So I very much appreciate all those comments and lines of thought.
Absolutely.
Anything else legislative that you'd like to mention?
Well, I could talk about 40 things, but here's the thing to know about this session and any session. There's always one thing that comes up that nobody thought of, like that nobody was anticipating, whether it's, a hot button issue, maybe something happens in a Supreme Court case that throws something into the limelight, and all of a sudden every member of the legislature's got a bill to change, whatever. I remember one of my first years in the legislature, there was a bill that was getting no traction about doing away with the inspection sticker.
Oh, yeah.
And this guy had been filing it for a few years. Y'all remember going and getting your inspection sticker annually. And somebody somewhere found out that bill was alive and well, and there began to be this groundswell of support, like grassroots, if you will, of get rid of the inspection sticker. And I'm telling you, it was like this feel-good moment. Everybody was like, we're doing something good that people really want. They are nagged by that $10 inspection sticker once a year that they forget about.
It's true.
Our vehicles are, obviously much more modern and safer and that sort of thing. There was a time for it, I get it, but we'd kind of moved on, in a modern society from it. And so nobody anticipated that. And then after the fact, everybody's like, why didn't we do this 10 years ago? You know what I'm saying? All these smart people, and nobody really pushed it. So there'll be something that bubbles up, some hot button issue so it's interesting for me to say, what is that going to be this session? What will be the unknown thing that can sometimes dominate the day?
That's funny, and it won't be too much longer. You'll talk to young folks, and they won't even know what an inspection sticker was.
That's right.
I think I've still got my last one from 2014 or so. It's still on my truck.
I've got one on one of my old trucks that's still on it. It's kind of just a badge of honor.
A little piece of memorabilia. That's right. That's
exactly starting to peel a little bit on it. That's good.
There you go. Well, you wanna hit us with the most important question?
Yeah, sure. I'll take the first one here. So, as we've discussed, you spend a lot of time running around the state, all over. You got to eat. Do you have any favorite spots? Maybe one that you don't get to go by very often. Maybe one back home. You got a new spot open up. Any places that you love to eat that you want to mention?
Man,
it's a tough question.
I'm a big old boy. You can tell I like to eat for sure. It's one of my favorite things to do. When we're here in the metro area, and especially when we're in session, it's hard to not be at Walker's or Tico's or
Oh, yeah.
Kessler, or even Shapley's. We love there and the privacy that it offers as well. So those are cool places. My wife's favorite probably is Walker's, and so
Fantastic.
she loves going there. And then close to the Cap, our lunch spot tends to be either Manship, Martin's, or Howlin' Miles still. The red beans and rice there still killer.
Absolutely.
You kind of go there and hide out a little bit.
That's right.
If you're looking for a quiet lunch, to get away from the political crowd a little bit. So those are like our little local mainstays here around town. Now, in my district, there's a place called Carmack Fish House.
Okay.
It's between Vaden and Kosciuszko on Highway 35 North, and they have some fine fried catfish on that buffet.
That is my cup of tea right there now.
So we like it. My wife and I really enjoy it, and what we really like to do is ease up there. It's about 10 miles. It's not close to anything. It's several miles from Vaden and several miles from Kosciuszko or west where I live, and so sometimes we like to just go order it takeout and get it and bring it back home. It's pretty cool to have it that way
Carmack.
too. So
Get the
Carmack
shout
Fish House, I highly recommend it.
I love it.
Love that.
Go get some fish.
We have a running list. Drew, our producer, has a list you can actually go on Google and look at all the places. So that is definitely going on there.
Added to the list.
Added to the list.
We said at some point we're going to go film an episode with everybody at the spot they mentioned. So Carmack's folks up there, if you're listening, we're going to be hitting you guys up for a live show at some point.
No
We're going to do a
doubt.
taste testing feature while we're there.
We're going to do it. So listen, besides food and MDOT Public Affairs, the water cooler talk revolves around music. So can you give us a favorite musician or maybe a favorite concert that you've attended in your life?
The favorite concert recently was last spring. Y'all remember Morgan Wallen came to Ole Miss, and Hardy opened up for him, who's a Mississippi boy.
That's right.
So, I'll have to admit, I'd heard his songs on the radio a little bit, and his opening for Morgan Wallen that night was a little bit edgy for me. But fast forward to this past week, Governor Reeves had him at his inaugural gala, if you will. And he came out, and Hardy did, and he just sat down on a stool and played acoustic for probably an hour and a half. It was pretty awesome to see a Mississippi guy stand there. And he not only played songs he's had on the radio, but he played several that he's written hits for Florida Georgia Line and when they did their deal with Morgan Wallen, Up, Down, and all that.
Yeah.
He wrote those. He wrote several of Morgan Wallen's #1 hits. He played those just acoustically on the stool.
Yes.
He hit a home run. It was outstanding. So it was cool for it to be a Mississippi guy. The other thing I will tell you is my other favorite concert, and it's been in the last year. Y'all remember Marty Stewart hosted Dolly Parton at Philadelphia?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And
wow.
my wife had always wanted to see Dolly Parton in concert, and she doesn't do a lot anymore. She came and did that benefit for the Congress of Country Music that's Marty Stewart's dream that he's building there on the square in Philadelphia, which is a cool project. But anyway, she came as a fundraiser for that. And we got to go because the legislature's been involved in helping get that project off the ground and helping that community get it going. It was really cool to sit in that old theater right off of Main Street in Philadelphia, and I could throw a football and hit Dolly Parton, and Marty Stewart sitting on a bale of hay just playing songs, and she would tell a story about how that song got written, and Marty might sing it with her. It was really cool. It was a neat experience. It was kind of
awesome.
a Mississippi moment there. It was pretty neat.
Very much so. That was like my first introduction to bluegrass music was Ricky Skaggs and Marty Stewart and Kentucky Thunder playing some of those bluegrass songs.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Love that stuff. Hardy's probably one of my favorite artists out, though. So spot on with the recommendations today, man. Spot on.
There you go. We do food and music very well in the state of Mississippi. We're biased, but it's very true.
We have some of the very best, no doubt.
No doubt about it. Speaker White, thank you again for making time for us. No, like we said, very busy. Appreciate you stopping by.
Appreciate y'all having me. Good to be here.
Yes, sir. We'll go ahead and end the show right now. Thank you to our listeners, our viewers for tuning into the Extra Mile podcast. You can watch and listen to episodes by visiting gomdot.com/the extra mile. Follow us on social media at Mississippi DOT is the handle there. We want to thank our producer, Drew Hall, who makes things go behind the scenes. And remember to drive smart out there on Mississippi highways.